I'm just want to share a little bit. I'm totally blessed in my life at this point. I've been given the honor and privilege to work with an organization called Fight for Freedom, who works in the battle against sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, and human trafficking, which is tearing this world apart, is tearing this country apart, is tearing this city apart. And we need to get active about it. But I want to tell you a story about a young man growing up here in Ottawa who at a very, very young age started into a very dark life. He'd had a good beginning in the church, but around 12, 13 started to just turn to the dark side. Became sexually active very young, 12 years old. Even started into porn addiction at that age. Sexual relationships with numbers of different girls at a very young age. Learned very early how to take advantage of women through manipulation, through all kinds of means. At the same time, also started to get involved in drugs. By the age of 14, was dealing on a regular basis, smoking hash daily, dealing in large quantities. By the time he was 18, 19, was involved in heavier drugs, importing cocaine from South America himself, taking advantage of the woman he was living with to help him as well. Always involved in his life was manipulation of women. It was a pervasive thing. And piled on top of that and involved into that was addiction to pornography. All work of the enemy, but yet continued to just tear him apart. But he didn't realize, he thought he was on top of the world because he thought everything was under control. Women were on this earth to provide him pleasure. Drugs were on this earth to provide him pleasure. Alcohol was on this earth to provide him pleasure. It was all about him, all about him, all about him. And there was a darkness overtaking him until the point in his 20s where he had literally a needle in both arms, using cocaine and heroin together, using cocktails of all kinds of prescription drugs, clinical morphine mixed with Ritalin, injecting that, ending up in an overdose in the hospital, to which the doctor said it was, their words, a miracle that he even survived. Was I heard them talking in the hall, that he heard them talking in the halls. And then the Lord dropped into his life this beautiful young woman who he fell in love with. But he didn't let go of the darkness. He was still using drugs extensively. He was still dealing extensively. He was still giving in to the addiction of pornography regularly. He was still using other women, even though he loved this one woman. So a totally twisted and painful young man. One of the aberrations that he had learned at a very young age, because of who he was hanging out with, was that if he allowed other men to perform oral sex on him, they'd give him money. And so even though he wasn't identifying as gay, he still, there was something more to provide for him. He could get money. So the whole world of sexual perversion, pornography, drug addiction had him in his total grip. Then he, well, it's me, right? I think that's kind of out of the bag at this point. But it isn't me. That was a person that was crucified on the cross. One day, I believe it was November the 15th, he asked his darling girlfriend, happens to be sitting right here with me, asked her, or she asked him, what do you want for Christmas? And he said, a Bible. She went, are you effing crazy? I have to say that she was somewhat in the dark world with me at that time. Yeah, so I started reading the Bible. The guy that was living with us had been burnt badly in the church, but he knew a lot about the Word. And we'd get high together, stay up all night. We felt that, well, if we're high, we can get closer to God. But you know what? The old saying, God works in mysterious ways. So we spent a year reading the Word together, getting high, selling drugs left, right, and center, still giving in to the addiction to pornography, still unfaithful to my beloved wife. We weren't married at the time, but we were living common law. Still totally messed up, but yet the Word grabbed hold, more and more. Then one night, there was a Christian comedian performing in the arena in Arnprior, of all places. The guy was from Tennessee. What he was doing in Arnprior, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so we went to this concert. Now, I'd been listening to tapes, so this is dating myself, but cassettes and VHS tapes about this comedian, and his life was very much paralleled mine. And he said something on the tape, one of the tapes, that you don't get cleaned up before you take a shower, so don't wait till you turn to the Lord to clean you up. And so we went to this concert. And at the end of the concert, he called anyone that wanted to come forward and give their heart to Jesus. And so we stood up and walked forward and gave our hearts over to the Lord. And things turned around like that. I know this is unusual, but a miracle healing from drug addiction dropped. There was no desire whatsoever. At the time, I had about $1,500 of drugs that had been fronted to me. I think everybody's probably familiar with the term, fronting drugs. Fronted to me, and as you well know, maybe three, fronted to me, and as you well know, you don't go back. And this was one of the nastiest suppliers in the Ottawa Valley. You don't go back and say, here, I become a Christian, I'm not doing this anymore, right? But I did. And this guy looked at it and he went, it's cool, man. Yeah. And so I went, oh my God, you are real. Because I was ready, but I just felt it. And so I went back home. There was some stuff left at home. I took it into the back field. I set a big fire, and I said goodbye to an old friend who's never been a friend at all, and turned away. And then the Lord brought us into some incredible churches that over the last 31 years. I've been serving the Lord, as I said at the beginning, has brought us together. My wife is actually the Ottawa rep for women's outreach into clubs here in Ottawa for Fight for Freedom. It's great ministry together with husband and wife is awesome. But I do want to share one little thing. I said I was completely healed. One thing prevailed and carried on for 2.5 years after I was saved, and that was addiction to pornography. That didn't let go. Or let me rephrase that, I didn't let go. until I met with a close brother, and we opened up to each other and became accountability partners. And what we finally realized was to stop fighting it and give it to Jesus. So I do just want to take a moment. I know by the statistics I work with, there's men and women in here tonight that are dealing at some level with sexual addiction. And I'm here to testify tonight, you don't have to hold on to it any longer. And stop fighting it. Give it to Jesus.